Welcome.
In a quiet estate in Asokoro town, Shade lived a peaceful life with her husband Bayo. They had been married for 10 years and were blessed with two beautiful children. Bayo was a successful businessman who owned a large sales company. He was always busy, attending conferences both outside and within the town, while Shade ran a small fabric shop in the market. The people in the town admired them, seeing them as the perfect couple. But behind the smiles and pleasantries, Shade had begun to sense a change in Bayo. He had become distant, often staying late at work and giving excuses for missing family dinners. He no longer played with his children as he used to. He stopped answering calls in front of his wife and was always in a rush. Whenever she questioned him, he would smile and say, "Business is tough these days, Shade. You know I'm doing this for us." Shade wanted to believe him, but her instinct told her there was more to the story. One rainy Saturday afternoon, Shade received a call from Bayo. "Shade, I'll be coming back late tonight. I'm sorry, I couldn't keep the promise of taking you and the kids out for dinner," Bayo said hurriedly. "Something came up with work. Don't wait up for me." Shade sighed. "Today is Saturday, Bayo. You need to spend time with family." But before she finished talking, the line went dead. She stood still for a moment, staring at the phone in her hand. Lately, this had become a pattern. Bayo's mysterious absences, his hurried excuses. For the sake of love and trust, she wanted to believe him, but her instincts told her something was wrong. Still, she buried her unease and focused on her chores. It was a stormy afternoon, with thunder rumbling in the distance. As she finished preparing lunch, there was a knock on the door. Who could that be in this stormy weather? Shade muttered to herself as she walked to the door. Opening it, she found a young, heavily pregnant woman standing on the porch, soaked from the rain. Her face was pale and her breathing was labored. "Please, I need help," the woman gasped, clenching her stomach. Shade, shocked but instinctively caring, quickly ushered the woman inside. "My name is Ifeoma," the woman managed to say, between shallow breaths. "I came here to tell you something very important. It's about... I think the baby is coming." Shade's heart raced. She didn't know this woman, but her condition left no room for hesitation. "Sit down, please," Shade said, guiding Ifeoma to the couch. "Let me get my keys. I'll take you to the hospital." Ifeoma nodded, grimacing in pain. Shade rushed to grab her car keys, her mind spinning. The storm outside was getting worse, but she couldn't leave the woman like this. "I'll be right back," Shade called to her children as she led Ifeoma to the car, carefully helping her to the passenger seat. The drive to the hospital was tense. The rain poured heavily, making it hard to see the road, and every few minutes, Ifeoma let out a groan, clenching her belly tighter. "Thank you so much," Ifeoma whispered between breaths. "I didn't know where else to go." Shade forced a smile, though her concern was growing. "It's okay, you're going to be fine. Just breathe." As they approached the hospital, Ifeoma's phone rang. She fumbled to pick it up, and when she answered, her voice trembled. "Bayo," she gasped into the phone. "I'm on my way to the hospital. I think it is time." Shade's grip on the steering wheel tightened. Her heart skipped a bit. Bayo? She tried to convince herself it was a coincidence, that the name was common enough, but a creeping feeling settled over her. The rain beat down harder and the tension in the car grew thick. Yes, yes, Ifoma continued on the phone, her voice faint but clear in the quiet of the car. I'm with a woman. She's driving me to the hospital. Please hurry. Shade swallowed hard. Her mind raced. Could it be her, Bayo? She wanted to ask, but fear stopped her. What if it wasn't just a coincidence? What if there was something more to Bayo's late nights, his distance? She shook the thoughts away, trying to focus on getting Ifoma to the hospital. But doubt gnawed at her insides. As they arrived at the hospital, Ifoma was quickly wheeled inside, leaving Shade standing alone in the storm, soaked through. She watched the hospital doors close behind Ifoma, her mind reeling. She needed answers. She needed to know who this woman was to her husband, why she came to her house, and where she was from. Shade paced the waiting room, her thoughts spiraling out of control. Suddenly, her phone rang. It was Bayo. Shade? Bayo's voice crackled over the line. Where are you? Shade hesitated, her mind pounding. I'm at the hospital, she finally answered, her voice steady but cold. I brought a pregnant woman here. She was in labor. There was a long pause on the other end, and Shade could hear Bayo's breath catch. Who did you bring? Bayo asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Shade clenched the phone tighter. Her name is Ifoma. She said she knew you. There was a long silence, a heavy, suffocating silence. Shade, I'm on my way, Bayo said finally, his voice laced with panic. Before Shade could respond, the line went dead. Her heart raced. She felt a chill that had nothing to do with the storm outside. She sat down, her mind swimming with questions. Bayo was coming to the hospital. What would he say? What would he explain? Minutes passed like hours, and then, through the glass doors of the hospital, she saw him. Bayo rushed inside, soaked from the rain, his face etched with guilt. He spotted Shade immediately, and their eyes locked. What is going on, Bayo? Shade demanded as soon as he was within earshot, her voice trembling with anger and fear. Who is Ifoma? Why did she call you when she was in labor? Bayo's face paled. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The truth was written all over his face. Shade's worst fears were confirmed in that moment. Ifoma, she's, Bayo stammered, but the words stuck in his throat. What, Bayo? Shade snapped, her voice breaking. Tell me the truth. She's pregnant with my child, Bayo finally said, his voice low, full of regret. Shade staggered back, her world spinning out of control, her heart shattered into a million pieces as the weight of his words settled over her. The storm that had been brewing in her marriage had finally broken, and now the truth lay bare before her. You lied to me, Shadow whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. You sent your side chick to our house, made me help her, and didn't even have the decency to tell me the truth. I didn't send her to you, Bayo said. I never wanted it to happen like this, he said, reaching for her, but Shade stepped back, disgusted. Don't touch me, she spat, her voice trembling with rage. You've destroyed everything we built. At that moment, a nurse came out, interrupting them. Congratulations, Ma, The lady you brought has given birth to a beautiful baby girl. She asked me to call one Mr. Bayo. Bayo looked stern, glancing between the nurse and Shade. You can go, Shade said, her voice cold as ice. Go take care of your new family. Without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving Bayo standing there, his betrayal hanging heavy in the air. As Shade drove home in the storm, her heart ached. Her perfect life had been shattered, her trust destroyed. But she knew one thing for sure. She would not let this betrayal break her. She would find strength to move forward, even if it meant walking away from Bayo forever. Immediately she left the hospital premises, her phone rang again. It was the hospital. Hesitant, Shade answered. Ma'am, this is Nurse Lydia from the hospital. The woman you brought in, Ifeoma, is asking to speak with you. She said it is urgent. Shade hesitated for a moment, her emotions in turmoil. She didn't want to face any more pain today, but something in her gut told her to hear what Ifeoma had to say. She turned the car around and drove back to the hospital. When she walked into the room where Ifeoma lay, the young woman looked weak, but her eyes were pleading. Bayo was nowhere to be found. Shade, I didn't know, Ifeoma whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't know Bayo was married. Shade's heart skipped a bit. She stepped closer, unsure of what to feel. What do you mean? She asked, her voice still cold, but now laced with curiosity. I swear, I didn't know. He never told me, Ifeoma continued, her eyes filling with tears. Although he told me he wasn't ready for a relationship, but I thought he was the one for me. I never imagined he was living a double life. I would never have come to your house if I had known that he was married. I didn't mean to hurt you. Shade stood there, stern. The confession hit her like a wave, stirring up emotions she wasn't prepared to confront. A part of her wanted to lash out, to scream at this woman who had unwittingly contributed to our world falling apart. But the sadness in Ifeoma's eyes, the realization that she too was a victim of Bayo's lies, softened Shade's heart. Why did you come to my house? Shade finally asked, her voice calmer but still laced with pain. Ifeoma took a deep breath, her hand resting on her belly. I had nowhere else to go. Bayo stopped answering my calls when I told him I was pregnant. I tracked him down because I was desperate. I didn't know I was walking into his real life. When I found out you were his wife, I wanted to tell you everything, but then the baby. She trailed off, tears streaming down her face. Shade felt a strange mixture of anger, sadness and pity. She had been hurt deeply, but so had this young woman. Bayo had lied to them both, tearing apart two lives with his deception. I am sorry, Shade. I truly am, Ifeoma sobbed. I never meant to come between you and your family. For a long moment, Shade stood there, processing the weight of Ifeoma's words. She had been betrayed by the man she loved, but now she saw more clearly than ever that Bayo's betrayal had cast a wider net. Ifeoma, though a part of the mess, was also a casualty of his selfishness. I believe you, Shade finally said, her voice softer now. I don't blame you for this. He is the one who did this to the both of us. Ifeoma nodded, her face a mixture of relief and grief. Thank you. I am so sorry. Shade took a deep breath, the storm outside seeming to echo the storm in her heart. She realized that there was no easy way to resolve this, no path that could erase the pain. but she also knew she couldn't stay chained to the lies of the past. Bayo had destroyed their marriage, but he wouldn't destroy her future. She looked at Ifeoma, her voice steady but firm. "Take care of the child and yourself." And with that, Shade turned and walked out of the hospital. The rain was still pouring, but this time it didn't feel so heavy. As she got into her car and drove away, she felt a sense of clarity. Bayo's lies had turned her world apart, but they hadn't destroyed her. As the road stretched ahead, she knew it wouldn't be easy. After a few hours, as she opened the door of their once happy house, she saw Bayo lying on the floor in a pool of his own blood. As she rushed towards him, his voice faintly sounded. "I am sorry, Shade." His sobs were louder than the heavy rain outside. "Bayo, please calm down. It's okay." His hands clenched tightly to a knot as he passed out. In the minutes that followed, Shade was able to get Bayo to the hospital with the help of their neighbors. As she waited for the verdict of the doctor, she opened up the blood-stained note. "My dearest Shade, it was supposed to be a harmless night out with the guys. I found myself letting loose at the bar, surrounded by my old friends and too many drinks. That's when I met her. One thing led to another, and we ended up spending the night together. I tried to brush off the guilt and the shame, telling myself it was just a mistake, a momentary lapse of judgment. I wanted to pretend it never happened, but my guilt was getting the better part of me. I didn't know how to tell you. And when she told me she was pregnant, I knew my secret would be out. Seeing you every day was a constant reminder of my betrayal, and I just couldn't bear the burden. That's why I was avoiding home. I am so sorry, my love. I did not mean to betray you. I don't even know how she found our house. I have not spoken with her since after that night. You can ask her. Please take care of yourself and the children. With love, your darling husband." At this point, Shade could not help her emotions and wailed loudly in the hospital. The nurses helped calm her down, unaware of the pains she had experienced in one night. Just then, the doctor came. "Madam, thank God you came when you came. We have been able to stabilize him, but he will have to spend the next week with us here. You can go home to refresh, please. You look very tired." "Thank you so much, doctor. God bless him." After going into the ward to see him, Shade drove home. The day's events flashed through her mind, but there was no resentment. She was grateful that she has gotten back her husband who had almost slipped away. Turning up the music, she drove into the night, singing songs of praise. The moral of this story is that trust is the foundation of any relationship. When broken, it shatters lives, but truth, even when it is painful, can provide a path toward healing. Thank you for watching. Do well to subscribe for more amazing stories.